Good morning. The Finance Committee meeting is called to order on December 7th, and I have 10:36 as our start. I want to stay on schedule because I don't want to keep you all waiting too long, but we do have 3 pieces of legislation to review, and they're not complicated, so just bear with us. So at this time, all members are present, that being Alderwoman Finlayson to my right and Alderwoman O'Neill to my left. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, I would entertain, we don't have minutes. Does anyone have minutes?
Do we have minutes?
11/16/22.
They're not here.
No, the minutes aren't attached. So,
Madam Chair, I would
I
recommend
have
we
minutes.
postpone action on our minutes until the next meeting.
on Granicus, I'm looking at Granicus.
Yeah, I have minutes. From 11/16/22. They're right here.
No, they're not.
Oh, I
attached.
see, on the, hold on, I know what you're saying, that,
So where are the minutes?
got it. I think they're in the wrong place, sorry about that. Yeah, they're
Okay.
below the agenda approval.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah. Do you see them?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Those, at this time, I'll accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes of Wednesday, November 16th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And I do want to thank you again, Director Jarrow, for that presentation. It was really informative about the financial framework of the City Dock project. At this time, we will start with legislation. The first one would be 031-22, Community Grant Program. And the summary of the bill is that it requires that all recipients of city community grant funds have proof of their nonprofit status. We clarify the definitions, and we expand on the requirements for the grantees, et cetera. At this time, do we want to put it on the floor for discussion? I'll accept a motion. I mean, for a favorable or,
I'd move to vote for a favorable recommendation to take it to the City Council.
any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye for a favorable recommendation to the City Council.
Any have discussion?
I had asked for discussion.
Okay, I mean, we have the motion on the floor to favorable. I would just like to make, my mic's not even on. This legislation, if I might,
Sure.
does simply what our process is today. It's codified in code now, but it's not suggesting that we aren't doing the appropriate or taking the appropriate actions as far as monitoring our nonprofits. And so I would hate for this to be read as if it's a deficiency in our existing system when it is not. It simply puts in writing what the process is. And the city manager has indicated that this will fall in his office and he will be overseeing to assure that the process is followed.
I would just only add that I do see that it, correct, but it does elaborate a little bit more on the faith-based applicants, that I didn't see that language in there before.
But you're correct,
Right.
because the city attorney has indicated to us
Right.
that we are no longer allowed to give faith-based groups community grants. So that is a definite change, absolutely.
Alderwoman O'Neill, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. All in favor of a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All righty. The next is a resolution. This is a fee resolution for the processing for fingerprinting services. And my understanding is that this aligns it with the state of Maryland, who raised its processing fee for fingerprinting services. So we this adjusts our fee schedule as the same. Do I have a motion for a recommendation?
Madam Chair, move approval of R 5822.
Second.
All in favor for a favorable recommendation for R 58-22 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one is the budget timeline, R 59-22. This is actually a little bit ironic because it's kind of went full circle. I'm not quite sure how it reverted back to committee, but this schedule was initiated by the finance department. It aligns with what we did last year, which seemed to work, and then coordinated with next year's holidays and what have you. It is a resolution, so it's subject to any sort of adjustment as we go. I think it was suggested that we put more detail into it. So at this time, I'd accept a motion for a favorable recommendation.
I have a motion for favorable recommendation to the council for R 5922.
All in favor signify by saying aye for a favorable recommendation.
Madam Chair, did you get a second on that?
No, I'm waiting. That's right. Sorry. We're rusty. It's on the floor for discussion.
Madam Chair, I have issues, not with the fact that we have a timeline, but I think the objective is somewhat different than simply doing a schedule. We know that schedules must be flexible, especially with the frequency of our meetings for the budget process. But I believe that the interest is more in getting involved in the bargaining process.
No, that's not what this does. Sorry.
Well, our discussion was very different than that. My understanding is that there is an interest in a concern about the fact that we get the negotiated agreements at the end of the process. And I shared with you that our time, one of several times to be involved is initially when we set our priorities and pass those priorities on to staff, and the members of the negotiating team are decided, and they are set to do their work, which is bargaining. As far as the bargaining process is concerned, we do not have a role at the table, but we have representatives from a number of departments sitting at the table doing our bidding, for lack of a better description. And so anything that would take away the employee's rights to negotiate fairly, as the state law determines, is a concern for me. And so I'm not sure whether this legislation is really, and Madam Chair, you're the sponsor, you can help me with this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this attempts to put us in the bargaining seat throughout the process, or at least more frequently, or simply making sure that we stay on a timeline. So if you could clarify, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I totally understand your confusion. This has nothing to do with that discussion about the union deadline. That's a discussion under separate cover for, it's not before us, but totally understood. That was a separate issue. There's been some concern. Let me just, divert to that for a second. There was this concern about not being privy to the negotiations prior budget approval. And I've subsequently met with Director Dickinson. That is not a one-sided issue. It benefits the city as well as the union representatives. And we are in the process of softening the budget code to not pigeonhole these deadlines. That's separate. This resolution is basically the same resolution I'm trying to find it, but we passed last year on timeline. I think the reason why it was postponed from the city council at the city council meeting was that my colleague thought that it should include that stuff. No, this does not speak. If you look at it, it's milestones. We have the strategic plan. That's something Mr. City Manager had to, initiate. So that is the one difference from last year, is that we will have the strategic plan instead of just this work session is what we did last year. Last year we had scheduled 2 work sessions, and I think we were able to make it go with just one on brainstorming. And then the mayor introduces his budget. Then the finance committee, I'm on page 1 of 2. The finance committee has their hearings. Then we have the work session for the capital project presentation and the affordability and other budget items. That's a joint meeting with FAC. Then we present our report May 8th. And then we start with the amendment process, which that's something in respect to the finance department those are deadlines we want to hold to, just so the finance department can get all this stuff related to amendments in the budget. So the due date for the budget amendments is the same. And then we have those marathon meetings, May 25th. And June 5th is the full day one, and then June 12th. Again, this went back and forth between the city manager and finance department to coordinate with holidays, et cetera. So that's what this does, and I apologize for any confusion on the whole union thing, but I think that's why it was postponed.
Madam Chair, I will support this because it is a resolution, and we're not bound to it.
No, we're not.
As a resolution. And one of my concerns was that it was very rigid, lack of flexibility, but more so that the message that goes to our employees, the unions are our employees. And so when we address unions, we're talking about our employees, and that's what's important to me. Yep. So given the fact that this is a resolution and that it gives us flexibility to move these dates as is needed, I will support
let me strongly support what you said. This will go to council. I do not want to add or introduce any more dates. This is just the milestones, mostly for scheduling staff, the long work sessions, the da-da-da-da-da. So I just ask for your support when this comes to council, that we don't pigeonhole it. As you said, this isn't binding. We can always go back to it and say, oh, well, that's not going to work, et cetera. So favorable, do I have a motion for a second?
I think you have a motion on it.
Okay, second then?
And it was seconded. I think you seconded.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. I'm sure Katie is happy about that. All righty. Okay, a couple of things on housekeeping. We have a general discussion. We will not have, it's not on the agenda, but just, typically we have an update from the finance director. She's she's at a bond sale today, which is kind of exciting. Katie, it's not on the agenda, so unless you have something at the end of their presentation to add, we're going to proceed with a presentation on the fiscal year 2023 capital budget. And it looks like we have a lot of people here. Unfortunately, there's only 3 mics, but Director Jarrell can coordinate. So if you just come up to the table, introduce yourself, and reference the documents that you're referring to.
All right, good morning, David Gerald, Director of Public Works, and with me is Sam Bryce, who's the Chief of Engineering and Construction. So we're actually going to ask our engineers, who are the project managers for these projects, to brief them. But I just wanted to say a few things first, and then Sam will start talking about the projects. So just to give you an idea of the scope of the CIP for the city. So the CIP that was passed for FY23 included for prior approved projects. So those are projects that aren't completed. They're still in the process of working their way through the system. We had a total of $149.3 million worth of general fund projects. Actually, that includes all of the projects. So $67.6 million of general fund, $13 million of sewer, $60 million of water, which includes the water treatment plant, which is still being wrapped up, and then $6 million of the watershed. So $149 million total of prior approved projects. So for FY23, those were all prior to FY23. For FY23,
I think
the projects totaled
time out for a second. Alderman Finlayson just wanted to. We have those numbers essentially from the.
I'm just giving you a brief overview, and I can certainly provide these. I just wanted to give you sort of a feel for what the scope of the CIP is, so I'll provide those numbers after.
So the bottom line is 149.
149 million of prior approved, and for FY23 another 73 million.
Director Gerald, you were breaking them down by water and other departments. That's what I was interested in capturing.
Okay. So, and again, I'll provide all of these to you after, but so the prior approved 67 million of general fund. There's a little bit, there's drabbles for transportation refuse, but 13.2 million for sewer, 60.5 million for water, and that includes the new water treatment plant. So that's why that number is so high for the prior approved, and then 6 million for the watershed restoration, which is our stormwater fund. So those sum up to about 149 million. I don't want to I didn't mean to get wrapped around these. I just wanted to sort of give you, I want to jump into the projects here in a minute, but I just wanted to give you sort of an idea of the scope of the projects that we're talking about. And then again, 62 million in general fund for FY23, but 41 million of that's for City Dec. So again, one project is the main driver of that number. Another 3.9 million for sewer in FY23, 5.7 million for water, and $1 million for watershed. So we have, for our size of city, we have a large CIP. I guess that's the bottom line that I was trying to get to. So right now we have about 30 active projects that are working their way through the various stages. We have 10 engineers who are sitting behind me who are going to come up one by one to present the projects. They are very busy with this workload of projects that we have, I can tell you that. And they also do things like reviewing plans and perform inspections and provide assistance to operations. And of course, Lisa does the traffic engineering. So we have very busy engineers on city staff. But busy engineers are happy engineers, so they like managing these projects. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam to start working our way through the list of projects that I handed out, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, just to address Alderwoman Finlayson's, I seem to be following you from the capital budget that was approved in the budget, and just, the numbers are here. I
Right.
didn't see any. So is that fair? Can I follow along by referring to the budget as you continue, or
So
there's?
are you talking about the CIP, the approved CIP?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the numbers all came from.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
we
the
have
FY23 approved capital budget and the CIP for 24 to 28.
Okay, so we have that.
Well, Madam Chair, the page you were just looking at had a summation of all of the projects and current and future funding. So we get copies of those, looks like 2 pages.
Katie would, they're in the budget book, but that's,
Okay, well, maybe we don't need it.
Yeah, we'll provide that. We'll provide both the page from the document as well as just kind of the high-level summary that I put together.
I just thought it might be helpful to see that at the same time, but we'll just use the descriptions that you have provided.
Appendix D. There we go.
Okay, Sam.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm going to go through a series of the projects that either I am handling or which are not really assigned at this point yet. First project is Barbud Lane. This is a road reconstruction project between Janwell Street and Forest Drive. It has been around for probably about 20 years now. We have started it, we have stopped it, we have paved the street, we have abandoned the project, and we've come back and we now have a project that we think we can get built. We've got 90% plans are complete. They're currently under review. We've had several meetings with the community, and we have discussed the right-of-way with them a number of times. We have now sent out easement agreements to them for their signature. To date, they've been out for about 6 weeks now. We have not gotten any of those back yet. So we are in the process of preparing to hold a community meeting in an attempt to get those agreements signed so that we can proceed forward with the actual construction. Cedar Park sidewalks are
I'm
sidewalks
sorry,
that,
has the respective alderperson of that?
excuse me? Yes,
Is
Alderman Gabe's involved with
involved?
that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
okay. And Hillary has also been involved in the
Coordinating the
outreach.
meeting. Okay, cool.
Cedar Park sidewalks, this is a sidewalk that is in Admiral Heights. It is running on Cedar Park Road from Windell up to just past Halsey. We put this under preliminary design this past summer. The consultant is at 30% plans on this right now, and based on those, we're going to have a public meeting to discuss their proposed alignment and work. The third project is Robert
wait a minute,
Eads.
time
Can we ask questions?
Yeah,
Are we going to ask questions at the end, or can we ask them?
probably best as we go.
You can ask.
Ask as we go is probably
as we
best.
go.
All right, I do have a question about Cedar Park sidewalks. So it says PowerPoint presentation of their recommendations. Is there a timeline
I'm
for
sorry,
that?
I heard PowerPoint. I didn't hear anything after that.
It says on our update, it says design team will provide a PowerPoint presentation of their recommendations at a public outreach. Is there
Yes.
a timeline for that public outreach?
That is, they have just reached 30% plans now. That's what the PowerPoint will be the PowerPoint presentation will be based on, so we have not yet scheduled that meeting yet. Generally, it's always a bad idea to attempt to do public meetings in December, because of the holidays and everyone is doing something else, so.
I think as we go, what we would like to know, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when I look, for example, at Cedar Park project, it looks like all of the construction is to be done in fiscal year 2023. That's the way I look at it. The allocation for construction is $293,000, and that's scheduled for this upcoming year. I think we want to know if there's any change in that, any schedule changes as we go, or any exposure, for lack of a better word, to the budget itself. I think you're here to talk about status, but is that fair to ask you those two questions?
I think that's a fair question to ask. And I think that going back to Barbud Lane, I think that is a very typical example. Okay, when you get into road projects, you have to get some easements. That's just the nature of the beast. We're at 30% plans. Moving forward will be a fairly rapid operation. I would expect to go to construction or to be advertising towards early summer of this coming year, provided that the right-of-way acquisition goes well. As you know, in order to, and that will allow us to put it under construction early in FY 2024. But in order to be able to do that, you have to have that money in FY 2023, because you have to have the money available to be able to advertise and then award the contract.
Right, and I see that wasn't allocated
Right.
for that project, so
That's Barbara.
Barbara, yeah, okay.
Madam-
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking at the budget sheet on Barbud. So help me to understand. There's no funding budgeted for '23, which makes it appear as if all the funding was already granted probably in '22 or prior to.
I believe that is correct.
So that means that the project should be finished this current year.
It will not be finished this current year because of the length of time it will take to construct. So that is probably a 180-day project to construct that. But again, one of the things that is delaying this is that acquisition of right-of-ways. This has been a very contentious project for years.
I recall.
I'm not doing this project, someone else is doing it, but I did this project 3 times and got almost to construction, and it failed because of either insufficient political will, monetary problems, because back in 2009, we were about to advertise it. We were about to acquire. We were actually actively acquiring the right-of-ways, and the money disappeared. And we're back attempting to do this again, and all of these things. Again, right-of-way takes an awful lot of time to acquire.
I do recall when Alderman Kirby was here. This is when this project began, so that was at least 2 terms ago. I don't believe it was lack of political will, because I know how much he was insistent about having this completed. But my next question has to do with the funding to acquire the land that you need for the right-of-way. I'm not seeing that, and where is that in the CIP?
These are all easements, but they're revertible easements, they're grading easements, and we're not paying for any of those right-of-ways. Generally, the right-of-ways we pay for, or that we have paid for in the past, have all been fee simple acquisitions, or where damage was done to the property. Some of these easements are actually easements that we are acquiring so that we can adjust the driveway aprons and the driveway entrances to get the proper grade back.
I understand that. I'm asking which of the categories is paying for those easements.
We're not paying. We are not paying for those easements.
So we're acquiring land and we're not paying
not
the owners for that land?
That is correct. We are not acquiring in fee simple. We are only acquiring temporary easements. And this is what you also see on Cedar Park Road. We will go to them. We will not be paying for those easements. We will be asking them to grant those gratis.
So temporary, and I don't want to belabor this point, but it needs to be clear. Cedar Park is the same thing. We're taking people's lands, using it to widen the road, put in a sidewalk, whatever, and then that land reverts back to the original owner. And who's responsible for maintaining that portion of the land that we addressed, and now it's in the hands of the owner again?
Well, by city code, sidewalks are the responsibility of the city to maintain, unless otherwise stipulated by.
No, you're
by
correct.
deed, okay? when we are not widening the roadway, being the paved surface or the sidewalks into their property. That is remaining within the current right-of-way of Barbud Lane and Cedar Park Road. However, in order to build the road, you also have to adjust driveways, which are outside of the right-of-way. You may also have to do some miscellaneous grading, which is outside of the right-of-way. So we acquire those for the length of the project. Generally, we acquire those for the length of the project plus 1 year. And the reason we acquire it for the length of the project in 1 year is that there is a 1-year maintenance bond that is required under our projects. So if something fails, for example, if they fix the driveway or readjust the driveway and the driveway spalls, we retain those easements so we can make the contractor go back in and fix that driveway if it fails within that 1-year maintenance period. But otherwise, or if the grading of the yard, where we may have to be tying slopes in, if that grass doesn't grow or it dies, we're able to go back and tell the contractor he has to repair that. But
Mr.
after
Bryce, I
that-
hate to interrupt you. I understand all of that, but my
Okay.
question is, who's responsible after we turn it back over to the homeowner?
Property owner is responsible.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
the answer. Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
So to simplify, moving forward, can I ask whose court it's in moving forward? Who is accountable for this to move forward at this point? It sounds like the
Which one?
land acquisition.
The city is working on that. We have prepared documents, and again, we
Okay.
have provided those to the property owners on Barbud
Yeah.
Lane, and no one has signed them.
Yeah, I'm only asking in case it's it's us. All righty, okay, so we are at Robert Eads Park.
Well, I still had some questions.
Oh,
about-
sorry.
Yeah, Cedar Park.
Sorry. Okay, yeah.
I was interrupted.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So we just want to be sure. So there won't be a meeting in December, a public meeting on the sidewalks.
No, there will not be.
Possibly January, February,
On the Cedar Park Road sidewalks.
on the Cedar
That
Park
is
Road
correct.
sidewalks. My other question in regards to Cedar Park sidewalks is there was a statement made that we're not allowed to work on sidewalks during the school year. And I have not been able to substantiate that. Can you tell me if that is actually a true statement? Or is it?
I have built sidewalks during the school year.
Okay.
I have repaired sidewalks during the school year. Who gave you that information? Do you know?
I do, and I won't say it right here.
Okay.
Because she's
but-
not here to defend that.
But I have, I've done sidewalks during the school year. We built I built Edgewood Road during the school year. I built Forest Drive during the school year. Whether we would build these during the school year or not, because we would be completely taking that walkway path out, we may, do that during the summer. This is, but we will get the sidewalks built.
Okay. So that kind of leads me to an approximate timeline. I have residents that have asked. They've now had the temporary sidewalk for a little over a year. It's a mess. People aren't using it because you can't walk a double stroller down it. You can't walk with a dog down it. So it's actually worse than it was without a temporary sidewalk. So I'm just looking for a timeline as far as,
Again, if everything goes well, if the right-of-way goes well, I would expect this is going to go under construction sometime this summer. But again, that is if everything goes well.
so we have another 6 to 8 months of,
Yes.
I mean,
Thank you.
is it an option to remove the temporary sidewalks if they've outlived their effectiveness?
I had asked that originally and was told that they wouldn't remove them because of the cost of removing them would then add to the cost of building them.
Okay, well, let's look at that. I'm not sure where, again, that answer came from, but we can look at it. And if it would be better without those temporaries until we can build the new ones, then we'll take a look at that.
Thank you. Now I'm ready to
I'll
move on.
ask. Okay. General question. Do you follow the fiscal, when you report in the table, in the capital budget, in the budget, do you, your fiscal, say construction is allocated, construction dollars is under the column fiscal year 2023 budget. Does that mean, what is the start and what is the end then? What is what fiscal year do you follow?
So it's the city's fiscal year, and so that's the year that the finance department comes up with the money.
Right.
So like we're doing the bond issuance, in fact, the bonds are being sold today for the FY23 bond-funded projects. So for a lot of these that you see are funded by bonds, we haven't had the money up until now, and we will with the bond proceeds to be able to start moving forward with these projects.
But it's in the fiscal year 2023 budget, construction, if it's construction allocation, construction then starts when? 2023?
Well, it's,
July 1st, 2023?
I mean, as you know from construction,
Yeah.
it's not magic where you just snap your finger and you move into
your
construction, right?
your
You go through that process.
Your start end is July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024.
So what this really is not so much the activity, but the funding.
Yeah.
Right. So if it lists in FY24 the construction, that's when it's going to be funded, not necessarily when it's going to be implemented, because we implement them as fast as the process allows.
Let me ask Alderwoman Finlayson to frame the question so she can.
I think there's some confusion because we're looking at the columns as budget 23. We're in fiscal year 23,
We are
we not? It began on July 1st, 2022, and goes until June 30th, 2023. That's fiscal year 23. So when we begin our new budget process, we will be working on 24. That will begin July 1st of 2023 and run through June 30th, 2024. Am I correct on that?
That's exactly right. And that's when the funding will be provided for these projects.
So right now, we're in 23. And so when we look at this CIP chart, it says budget, what is this, for Cedar Park, 23. There's no funding allocated for out years, 2024, 25, because the project should be finished this year. Am I misunderstanding this?
And I wish it were that simple.
I know.
So the ones that are bond funded when the bonds are sold and the cash is available. So we can't move forward with the contracts until there's funding, and there's not funding available, at least for these. And for grants, that's a whole different picture, because that's when you're able to obtain the grants, right? And so that varies as well. But what this indicates in the CIP is the year it's going to be funded, that funding is going to be made available to start the project and start moving through that process.
So if it is not finished in 2023,
The money carries over. CIP
The money
money
will then
always carries over.
over to that next column. That's
Right.
what I want us to be
Right.
clear about.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so like for BARBUD, a lot of that is prior year money because it's been funded over the years, and it just keeps carrying forward. So we don't have to renew it. It doesn't expire. It just remains available.
Okay.
So it's a funding allocation, not necessarily construction schedule. Yeah.
Right.
Where were
Thank
we?
you.
Robert Eads.
Oh, Robert Eads Park.
Okay, Robert Eads Park is located on Clay Street near the intersection with Glenwood. It is a park, it's an existing park, but is being renovated and restored, and is being dedicated to Robert Eads, who passed away, I think, 2 years ago. He's a local civic activist. We have 60% design on this. We have met with the community 2 or 3 times at this point. There is a piece of artwork that is going to be within the park that is dedicated to Robert. That has been prepared, and we are, and Director Trader has asked that we have a final public discussion with the community so they will know what's happening with this. And that is scheduled, I believe, for the 14th at the church is on West Washington Street, which shows that I'm getting
First
old.
Baptist?
First Baptist. It shows I'm getting old and I cannot remember names anymore.
Can I ask that I be added to that?
I believe that you have been, but I will double check. Don't feel bad. They didn't invite me to it, so I'll ask Archie to add you to that.
Thank you.
Pickleball court lighting for the pickleball courts over in Truxton Park. That has been funded this year, but design has not started on that yet.
So is that wasn't in the, I don't see it listed in the capital budget. Does it have a different
We
name?
voted on it.
I know.
There
Which
was a
one
long
is
Is it
it?
under
about it.
Truxton Park? I'm looking for it also.
Oh, it might be Truxton Park Tennis Courts and Fence.
It's, let me see if there's a separate sheet. It's shown in one of the tables.
Oh, it is, it is Truxton Park.
On page 8, it's shown in that spreadsheet, as just alphabetical order pickleball court lights. Let me see if there was a separate
Page 38.
page. Thank you.
Did you say 30?
38.
38?
That's, that's my, I have Southwood sidewalk.
Do you have the proposed or adopted? Because this was the one of the amendments.
It's not 38 in our books.
Is it? Do you have the
No.
proposed or adopted budget book?
I think I have the proposed still. In the budget book, it's proposed. Yeah, I never got a copy.
So this was added to the adopted budget book since it was an amendment.
Okay, cool. That's,
Well, what's on our website?
Both. It depends on which column you look in.
yeah, but I should probably
Okay.
just do that. Okay.
This is it. She's saying this PDF is the proposed one. And the
Okay,
other-
I need the
There's,
other
yeah,
one.
we have both on the website. Okay. Next, but are there any questions? on
Whose
that?
ward is Truxton Park in? Is it 6 or 5 or
Alderman Gay, right?
do we know? Is it gay?
I think it's Shannon.
Or is it,
I think it's Brooke.
or is it split up?
It's different parts of Truxton Park are in different wards. I mean, there's part of it in Ward 1, isn't there?
Well, I'm on the other side of Spa Creek.
But it's still Truxton part
I
of,
know Alderman Gay has at least part of it. I don't know if he has all of it.
yeah,
I'm
okay.
Truxton
Not sure.
Heights, yeah.
yeah.
All right, so,
Thank you.
okay, the Annapolis Walk Park.
Annapolis Walk Park, there's planning and design funding that will become available in FY '23 for the project. We have met with Director Trader to discuss how we would like to proceed with this. We're going to do a public outreach to find out what they're looking for, what the community is looking for, and then we will be able to proceed with the design on the park.
And we will be meeting to talk about separating this into phases. So the basketball court would be phase 1, as that may not require design, and then the rest of the park would be phase 2. So we can do that. We'll schedule a meeting to discuss that.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to that meeting. I do object to, this whole idea for this park came out of a walk that the mayor and I did 2 years ago. And the picture that's in your diagram in the CIP is the rendering that the mayor had his architect do for us. I feel like we're going backwards because at least the basketball courts, which are of the most urgency to me, have been 18 years in the waiting. colleagues, I've provided you with pictures, and I sent Julian pictures because I wanted them to be on, and I don't know whether he has the pictures. Yeah, of the basketball court that the kids in Ward 4 have to play on, with grass growing up out of the middle of the basketball court. I can't capture on my cell phone some of the other issues with this basketball court, but I am sure there's not another basketball court in the city that looks like this. I am sure that kids in other communities haven't had to wait a year and a half, okay, to have this basketball court redone. And I feel like we're setting ourselves up because there are people who object to kids having a basketball court. I've had community meetings, and I want my community meetings to count as community meetings. The mayor was at the community meeting when we rolled this out, because originally we had planned to put a stage out there and have entertainment. And there were people who did not live in the ward who came to object, who wanted us to do tutoring and take out the basketball court, to not allow the kids at the other end of this diagram to play soccer. They wanted a parking lot. And that's all recorded. But I feel like we're going, now this is a picture with the kids just before it got cold, playing on the playground in spite of the conditions. And so I am going to request that the kids in my community be treated with the urgency that we treat other communities. You know, if this was pickleball, and I hate to pick on pickleball, but if this was pickleball, we'd have lights out there already. But that's not happening. So I want my kids to have the same conditions and the same benefits from the city that everybody else has. And if I have to go around and take pictures of all the other courts in the city, I will. Okay? And likewise, and this is another issue, but I'm going to have to raise it right now, is the painting of the curbs in my community. This is a perfect example of what our curbs look like. And granted, they were painted, what, a year ago, 2 years ago? Which speaks to the quality of the painting that were, not the people, but the materials that we're using. Because this is how the whole community looks. And no wonder we can't stop people from parking on the street because they don't believe it's a red curb because surely doesn't look like one. So how do we get this fixed? And one of these pictures is a picture of one of our police officers very recently out there playing, oh, that's another so-called red curb, but a picture of one of our police officers out there playing with the kids, keeping kids engaged and doing something positive, because we know if we don't give them something positive to do, they're gonna find something else to do. Okay, so yeah, that's the picture of the officer. So I'm making an appeal here, and I spoke to the city manager, and I know the mayor is interested in moving this ahead. So yeah, let's take out the basketball court and do this before spring, when the weather turns again, and the kids are gonna wanna play outside. And let's give them some place to play. Okay, this whole park is gonna be great. This is the mayor's vision. And I totally support it and appreciate it. We've already put out some of the amenities. There's already a volleyball net out there. There's a horseshoe. The mayor wanted horseshoes. I'm not sure anybody plays horseshoes, but there's a horseshoe pit out there, you know? So there are benefits that are coming. We have a new playground. We appreciate that. And the funding that came from the state that paid for that new playground and the playground at Truxton Park also included funding to resurface this basketball court. And for some strange reason, that funding went away, even though we were promised that it was going to happen. And I know this doesn't fall totally on Public Works. I know Rex and Parks has a big piece of this. And Rex and Park is in my ear saying it's Public Works that's holding up this job. So I'm not putting it on anybody. I'm putting it on everybody, myself included, because I should have been screaming about this a year ago, and I wasn't. But now I am. So let's see what we can do. And that's the police officer. He's got his back to us. I couldn't get him in action because, again, I was on my cell phone. But, you know, they come out there and play with the kids to keep the kids engaged. And I'm asking the city to do the same thing that they would do at any other community. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm hearing the project as reflected in the capital budget is not conducive to what Alderwoman Finlayson understands the project to be.
Ellie, your mic's on.
Right, so if we're going to do construction of the court in FY23, we're going to need to move money into this capital budget for construction. So that's the meeting that we're going to have to discuss doing that and making that phase one and getting that done quickly, because that may not require design effort. So we would just be able to have the paving company come out and take care of it.
But because that is a tennis court, is not as simple as let me go drop a screed out there and pave, which is what we did over in Newtown probably 6 years ago. It was very open, and you were able to bring a screed down. We paved it and coated it. In this case, part of the fences have to come down in order to get a screed within that to pave it. So it's a little bit more expensive than just, pave the thing and coat it.
Mr. Bryce, I'm not suggesting that it's not going to be more expensive. That's not my suggestion at all. My suggestion simply is this needs to be moved up. This should not come in 2024, which is not this year, but next year. Okay? This needs to happen now. And if necessary, we go to contingency for everything else. Let's do something here really for the kids and use some funding to pay for this minor project. And I would like to know exactly what it would cost. If we're going to redo this basketball court, and I'm okay with leaving most of the park in the CIP for 24. But this basketball court cannot wait. So I'd like to know exactly what it costs. How much money am I asking for? How much money am I seeking to pay for this project? Madam Chair, is that clear?
Yeah, I think you need to reassess the whole description here and that meeting, apparently there's a meeting scheduled, so that's good.
I'm not sure there's a meeting scheduled. Oh, well, you're talking about, there is a meeting with myself and
Yeah.
the director and the city manager and the other director.
Yeah, okay.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. Next, Moyer Park we have.
Moyer Park, which is on Edgewood Road, this is to improve some of the sidewalk within the park to make it a hard surface sidewalk, or let me rephrase that, a concrete or asphalt sidewalk through the park. Currently, that sidewalk is a shell sidewalk, and to provide lighting through there. The next project is the Bay Ridge Avenue sidewalk.
Oh, wait, I forgot. Do you have an extra copy of the status for us, for Caitlin? I do. Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. All right. So any questions on Moyer Park? It's Rob Savage's ward. Any questions on that?
I do have a question on the Moyer Park. How is that working in conjunction with the construction that the Maritime Museum is going to be doing? Is that working in tandem? Is it? This
is, there's currently a trail that runs through the park. And so this will be the improvement of that trail. When we built Edgewood Road, we brought a sidewalk up to the parking lot at the corner of the park and provide a crosswalk there. That then tied into the trail that went through the park, which was again a shell trail. So it was about 4 feet wide. This project has been requested to improve that trail, so it'd be a hard paved surface following the existing trail, and then go into the park. You would walk through the park and then tie back into the sidewalk that is by Baywood.
Thank you.
Okay. The Bay Ridge Avenue sidewalk, this is to put in a piece of sidewalk that effectively runs from Mount Moriah Church at Forest Hills Avenue up to the intersection with Bay Ridge Road / Forest Drive. We attempted to build this about 3 years ago. but we needed to get right-of-way from the property owners there, and they were not conducive to talking about granting us right-of-way. There are a number of issues that are there, which include steep slopes, as well as there are a series of power poles there that are going from overhead to underground, which means there's an awful lot of wire in the ground. So we have a capital project to make those improvements.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
A couple of questions. Going back to Moyer Park, is there connectivity with the sidewalks at Moyer Park on Edgewood Road? Where is it connecting?
Okay, so on Edgewood Road, when we built Edgewood Road, we put sidewalks that came up both sides of the road. Because of Bert Jabin's Yacht Yard.
I'm having trouble understanding you, Mr. Price.
So when we built Edgewood Road, we put sidewalks on both sides of the road. That continued on both sides of the road up to Bert Jabin's Yacht Yard. At Bert Jabin's Yacht Yard, there was insufficient right-of-way, and there was fencing that was set right at the edge of the roadway. We put a crosswalk there to bring I'm going to say the eastern sidewalk across the road in front of the wastewater treatment plant. We continued that with a 8-foot hiker-biker trail up to the corner. That crossed with a sidewalk, and that tied into the park. The park at the time had a walkway, again, a walkway made of shell that ran through the park and ran to the intersection with Bemby Beach Road. I had built a sidewalk there that went to the crosswalk in front of Bay Woods, and and connected to the sidewalk that Bay Woods built down to, I want to say, Awald Road.
Mr. Price, excuse me, you're on the other side of the street. My question is about the sidewalk we're talking about putting in at Moyer Park. So is there connectivity to Mariners or to any of the residences along on that side of the street? Or is this just our sidewalk in front of our park?
No, this will run through the park. Currently in front of Mariners Landing, Tallwood Road.
So does it connect past the residences along there?
There's currently a sidewalk there. There's a sidewalk that runs from Bay Ridge Road on both sides of the roadway up to the wastewater treatment plant. At the wastewater treatment plant, because of Bert Jabin's fence, we cross the one sidewalk from the west side of the road to the east side of the road, and that becomes a hiker-biker path. That hiker-biker path runs adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant up to where the first bend is in Edgewood Road, and crosses with a crosswalk at that location and ties into Moyer Park.
Okay, so
there is a sidewalk, there is a parking lot at that location, and then there is a shell trail that runs through the park, runs to a set of steps that goes down to where the buildings are. You can then walk through the driveway, and then it will tie back into what will have to be a new sidewalk at the other end at Bay Woods.
okay, so the answer is there is connectivity.
Yes.
But it's not all on the same side of the road, so it crosses over. You know, I'm very familiar with the road. I
Right.
lived on it for 15 years,
Right.
and I grew up on Cars Beach Road, so I'm very, very familiar with the road.
Right.
So thank you, but I just want to make sure there was connectivity.
Yes, there is
Okay.
connectivity.
Thank you. My other question had to do with, what was the next one? Bay Ridge Ave sidewalks. Mount Moriah, is it on the westbound side or the eastbound side of this, or is it going on the eastbound side around the community of Bay Ridge Gardens?
Currently there is a sidewalk that runs on the side with Bay Ridge Gardens, and it runs up to Bay Ridge Road. And it is
Right.
all the way from I want to say Van Buren, but it's not Victor Parkway, up to Bay Ridge Road, and it ties into the sidewalk that is on Bay Ridge Road.
Okay.
There is a sidewalk on the opposite side of Bay Ridge Avenue that goes to Forest Hills Avenue. There is no sidewalk that runs from Forest Hills, or there may be a little piece at Mount Moriah, but there's
Right.
no sidewalk that runs from Mount Moriah up to Bay Ridge Avenue at Hillsmere. However, one of the issues that is associated with that, which is very near where the bus stop is there is a series of telephone poles that block the area from being able to put a sidewalk in there. We attempted to do something, I want to say 3 years ago at that location, but we would needed to get right-of-way in order to put that in. That we were unable to negotiate with the property owner to get that right-of-way. So we have a capital project now to address that and to put the sidewalk in up that length of roadway.
So the church property is not part of the property that you need the easement
If
for?
Very honestly, Alderman, or Alderwoman, I don't remember, but it is going to extend up that side. I don't remember how far that sidewalk goes. I think it may go to the first entrance, and then we would have to pick it up from there. But I don't remember exactly where that goes. But it's to complete that leg of the sidewalk.
You have 75,200 for land acquisition fiscal year 2024. Is that what you're speaking of?
Is that Bay Ridge, the Bay Ridge
Yes,
part of
because
it?
what we're
Yeah,
we're
that's
involved in
Bay
there
Ridge.
is we are involved in getting right of way from basically 2 commercial establishments. Now, we have in some cases been able to acquire right of ways gratis. We did that on Forest Drive. When we did those, we were able to acquire right of ways fee simple right of ways from the property owner and gave them an appraisal, which they then used as a donation, as their tax advisor may do. I don't think we've gotten that far with these discussions yet.
I guess Betsy's up next.
Okay, so Betsy, our stormwater program manager, is going to brief the next couple projects.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity today. I'm Betsy McKeown, Stormwater Program Manager. The Stormwater MS4 permit compliance is funded through the Watershed Restoration Fund. We submitted the MS4 annual report in October, and we are currently negotiating the fiscal year 23 Green Vest scope for the programmatic work. We just finished our first city-funded Chesapeake Bay Trust project at the Cedar Ridge Green Alley. And we are entering the 3rd year of the Chesapeake Bay Trust and Anne Arundel County City Partnership Grant Program. And it's currently open, and we held a workshop on November 29th. It's a very exciting and successful program that we've been participating in. Any questions before I move on to the mobility plan?
One question, who gets invited when you have your grant workshops?
We recently had a workshop for the Truxton Cove project, and I recall we invited the neighborhood, Alder, City Council, and we try to cast as wide of a net for those workshops as possible.
So it's not limited to people who are already doing this kind of work? Organizations, I shouldn't say people, but organizations.
Do you have a suggestion for who you're?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm happy to hear any suggestions if you think we need to.
Okay, was just
invite more.
wondering whether it was.
We try to invite those interested parties. We look at a lot of these projects as opportunities for other communities as well. So we try to make sure that other community organizations are engaged in the processes.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Betsy, can I ask an off-the-wall question? Within the city limits, do we ever run out of projects?
No, I wish.
No. I mean, on the stormwater MS,
No.
I mean, they probably just get more difficult as we go, I assume. You know, I mean, eventually we run out of real estate to do these projects. Okay, carry on.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay
yeah.
for me to move on to the mobility plan? I still have some other projects that I'm managing. We have purchased 2 GEM vehicles, and we issued an RFP for planning feasibility study earlier this year, and we received no proposals. So we moved forward with working with a group called Volpe to ask for scope and fees. We are in the process of revising that scope, and we expect to be asking for funding to fund that study fiscal year '24.
Hold on a second. Is this the ferry?
Yeah, this is a 100% electric mobility plan. Yes, it is.
Okay. So what happened with the purchase of the ferry? Didn't we put upfront money in there to buy the ferry?
Yeah. We were looking at that one that was built in Scandinavia, and there were a lot of issues with the Coast Guard and getting it approved by the Coast Guard. So we kind of backed away from that until we can do this feasibility study and buy one that can be licensed to actually operate as a ferry.
That's
So
probably a blessing in disguise. It'd be one thing to have a ferry and not know where you're going to be able to
right.
launch it
So
from.
these GEM vehicles are the small golf cart type electric vehicles that we've purchased. We found a couple that were available up in New Jersey, and so that was part of the project. So we are moving ahead with that. The electric circulator is also being acquired, but that has a longer lead time. It's about 18 months to get an electric bus. So that's been ordered as well. So the ferry will be sort of the last piece of this after we're able to study it more and see what's available. There's not a lot of electric ferries out there.
Go ahead.
I'm not seeing this in the list.
Oh, I haven't found it. I haven't
This
really
one-
looked
this
for
was
it.
the one that we did the amendment to the CIP last year in FY22 to add it.
Would it get another name?
In the approved, we're looking at the approved budget, the
Let me
capital
see if I can
CIP.
find it.
Electric mobility.
Electric,
I see
It's
it.
under E, electric mobility.
Annapolis, yeah.
So the feasibility study, is that for the whole shebang, or are you okay.
Yeah, it's for the whole shebang, as you said. It's to look at a lot of things, obviously, but what are going to be the maintenance requirements for all these? What's the charging infrastructure that has to be done? What are going to be the parking requirements to support people using this? What docking facilities are we going to use over in Eastport? So it's going to look at all of those broad issues that are related to this project.
So we're definitely going to revisit it this upcoming budget.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. My favorite one coming up. Yikes. The Compromise Street Pump House.
I'm playing favorites.
Oh, yeah, I know, we're playing favorites, right? Aldermanic courtesy, right? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
There we go. Sorry. I'm Lisa Greco. I'm an engineer in the Department of Public Works, Engineering and Construction. I'm here to talk about the City Dock Flood Mitigation Project at Compromise Street. This project has been in design for 5 years. We've completed the design. We've subsequently had to break it into 2 construction phases because we've had funding issues. Prices are rapidly escalating. We've not been able to keep up with the cost and get it out to bid. So it's currently a phase 1, which is comprised of the bulkhead, the wet well, the above ground control structure, and discharge pipes. And phase 2 then is the realignment of the remaining storm drains along Compromise Street through Memorial Circle and Market Space. So the design for both phase 1 and phase 2 have been completed, and phase 1, which is the pump station, was put out to bid last year. We received only one bid and had a bid bust. It came in at $22.7 million. Our current available funding is just under $8 million for this project. And We are currently working with Whiting Turner, who is under contract working on Hillman Garage, as well as the City Dock Resiliency and Revitalization Project. So they are currently developing a cost proposal to construct the Phase 1 pump station at Compromise Street as well. The Phase 2 portion, which is just the realignment of the remaining storm drains in Compromise Street that would then go to the pump station. That design has been completed and is currently in review for a building permit and grading permit.
So how is that funding going to be? I mean, clearly it's an alt add to Whiting Turner on the City Dock side. How do we address that in the CIP?
Well, I think the project's already in the CIP, so, the way we implement that isn't really in the CIP. It would just be that's a different approach that we would use since we've already competed with Whiting Turner. There wasn't a lot of interest in the project when we put out for bids, and so
it still will be identified.
We're taking a look at this. Yeah, we're using Whiting Turner to get. They're actually going to bid it out to see what kind of pricing they can get for it. I'm pretty confident that we're going to be over budget again, over the $8 million that we have available. So we need to fit it into the whole City Dock project, because that side is obviously critical to the overall flood protection and resilience of City Dock. We have to do both sides, and so this addresses the Compromise Street side and the big Dock Street project, the City Dock project that everybody knows about, addresses on the Dock Street side.
Right. So the fund, you mentioned something further along, Lisa, that you said it's in permit. Is that,
yes,
do we have funding for that portion?
So for that portion of the project, Phase 2, we have applied for a FEMA grant. It's estimated that that portion of the pump station project will cost approximately $10 million. The project location is immediately adjacent to the work that'll be done as part of the City Dock Resiliency Project, which is on the Dock Street side. That does encompass the head of Ego Alley and the Donner parking lot. And so the storm drain realignment is right adjacent to the Donner parking lot. So we've applied for a FEMA grant to cover the storm drain realignment as well as the City Dock Resiliency. It's a grant in the amount of $30 million total.
But in the meantime, those quote-unquote temporary pumps are holding their own.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
All right, we're doing some rehab work at the end of Newman Street because that one needs some work on it. But yeah, we're keeping them updated and keeping them working.
Okay, the ducks will be happy. Okay, any questions?
Madam Chair, I do.
Yeah.
I have a question. More and more, we're hearing that we're not getting folks to bid on our projects, or we're only getting one bid, as Ms. Greco just indicated. Would it be unethical or inappropriate for us to go to companies that we know do the work that we need and make them an offer outside of our normal bidding process, or even to encourage specifically people to bid on our projects? Because we've got to come up with an answer some kind of way, because we're between a rock and a hard place, as my grandmother would say, because we have to have the project done and they get to charge us whatever they want because there's no competition. So when do we take the position that we've got to go out and find people to do our work for us?
So we do that already. So I think Lisa can talk about that. She talked to Chinbro. Chinbro was the company that did the bulkhead a few years ago down at the Market House side of things. And they're a really good contractor. They were on schedule and on budget. And so,
I remember that.
So Lisa reached out to them. We're reaching out to Whiting Turner since we already have them under contract to get them to do some pricing. So we do some of that already. A lot of that's just the nature of, there's so much construction going on right now, and unfortunately, when we were bidding our Compromise Street flood mitigation was when the Naval Academy was bidding the seawall project that they just had the groundbreaking for. And it's a much bigger project than ours, so there was more interest in that. And Chinbro ended up bidding that, and they were the low bidder, and they got that project. So I'm sure that they felt like if they were successful, they didn't have the capacity to do both of the projects. They probably could have bid them both, but they probably couldn't have executed them both at the same time. So Chinbro didn't bid, and Whiting Turner's very busy. You've seen them all over town doing work, and so they didn't bid on it either. So that's why we're working with them, is to try and get good pricing.
So why wouldn't a group of your engineers get together and create their own, I shouldn't say this. Never mind.
Where's she going with this?
No, I'll take it back, but they know what I'm thinking. They have the skill setting, and I remember Ms. Greco with the bulkheading and underfunded early, all the right benchmarks. So I know the skill set is there, and we appreciate it.
She does bring up a good question, Alderwoman Finlayson, is, because of this happening, and it seems like the estimates are off, it is something to think about as far as proceeding with sort of a design-build process so that, the estimate is more realistic. It marries up with the design. My understanding on this one is that the consultants, the actual contractors, did the estimate, or the engineering group that.
The design. Go ahead.
No. So AECOM, the design engineering firm, did do an estimate. They updated it right before it went out to bid. It came in at 10 million. They assured us it included all the escalation that we were seeing. But there are other, we actually did a forensic analysis. We had AECOM contact all the contractors on the bidders list to understand why there wasn't as much interest. And there were other factors that fed into people's deciding not to go after the project. There's a lot of risk. It's a very tight urban area. It's working around the boat show. We also, one of the grants we have that funds this project through MDE has an additional review process that is required after procurement, where they have to review our procurement process, and it goes to the State Board of Public Works, and it could add up to 3 to 4 months of additional time before the city could award the contract. And so some contractors opted not to bid because, they would have pricing, and as we're all hearing, they're rapidly escalating. So that's why some of the prices are coming in higher, anticipating they're going to have to wait another 4 months before the contract is awarded. So there were a lot of other factors at play that fed into either not having competitive bids and the high pricing.
It's not that they just don't like us.
Yeah, and also I know we updated the procurement code when City Manager Teresa Sutherland was here, so we do have a procurement policy.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty then. Next
is the City Dock Resilience and Revitalization Project. That's the project to revitalize the Dock Street side of City Dock. Whiting Turner is part of the consortium team that's doing Hillman and this project. We've been working very closely with them. The project design is ongoing, and they're currently Whiting Turner's updating the pricing for that portion of the project, the City Dock Resiliency. Currently, the construction is expected to start in late 2023 or 24, early 24.
let me ask a simple question. Is Whiting Turner aware of our budget on the project?
They are, because they
Developed
were
it?
part of the AMRP team.
Right, okay.
And so when they put in the proposal a couple of years ago for 40 million, that was the number from them. They were involved with that. A lot has changed in 2 years since that proposal came in, so that's why we're having them refresh at this point. We're still early in design phase, but we're having them update the project budget.
And they also provided input in terms of scope of work and costs for the FEMA grant that we applied for to fund that project as well.
So we have funding for that pre-construction process, that engineering, et cetera. So-
Yeah,
Yes.
that came sort of off the top of the concession payment, 25 million. We took about $2.5–3 million off the top to get that moving along.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yes, we also have a federal EDA, Economic Development Administration grant that's funding the design portion of the City Dock Resiliency Project as well. That's in the amount of $3.2 million.
Yes,
So the 41.6 million that's shown in the CIP is the number not inclusive of grants? Because I'm just looking at the regular chart now, I'm tired of flipping pages. But that's the bottom line, 41.625.
Yes, so that was the number that we got from the proposal from AMRP a couple of years ago that I just mentioned. So we think that that's too low because there's been a lot of cost escalation in the 2 years since they submitted their proposal. So they're updating, refreshing their cost estimate for the project.
Okay, so, but no grants have been, and maybe it's on the regular CIP
Yeah,
sheet.
so there is grant funding. So Lisa mentioned the EDA grant for the design. We also got $10 million from the state as a grant for construction. We have the rest of the concession payment available for that, and we have grant applications in to FEMA for that project and several others. We got some earmarked money from Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen. So we've got bits and pieces of that, but we're not up to the 40 million, so we're still looking for money.
I'd like to ask about the Resiliency Authority. I know that's probably not the right name. Are they helping us secure funding?
So they haven't yet because they're still standing up. It's the Resilience Finance Authority, the City County Resilience Financing Authority. Dan Neese is the temporary executive director, so he's standing up the board, establishing all the board rules. But we hope that they get established in time to help us with this project. This was a project that really was the genesis for setting up that authority initially. So we're still hopeful that they'll be able to come through and help with some of the funding.
Okay, well, that's all very promising.
Yeah.
As far as the funding. Thank you, Madam Chair.
let me ask this simple question. There's a lot of moving parts to this. Is the scope clearly defined? I mean, as far as what's in this and what's not in this, is there, when you say the price is going to increase, is that, I assume that's based on the design as is and there's not a scope growth? Or I'm just concerned about scope growth, again, with all
Yeah.
the sort of moving pieces,
Yeah.
especially what happening above ground. Because the focus of this is that we cannot forget that this is about infrastructure, and it's not, it's not the frou-frou above. So, for my construction terms here, but, I just want to make sure that that scope of infrastructure is intact and,
Yeah. Yeah, so the RFP was issued based on the consensus plan that the City Dock Action Committee developed. So that's always been the base scope for this project.
Yep.
There's discussions of some other things, and like a fountain.
Yeah.
And like including Burtis House now that we own it. We didn't own it when the consensus plan was developed. So in some shape or form, including that and looking at the end of PG Street as well, because that floods and that wasn't part of the CDEC scope of work. So, but that consensus plan is the base
Right.
bedrock part of the scope. So
Right.
that's not going out. There
Yeah.
may be a
And-
few enhancements to the scope, but
Right. So,
that
I
will
mean,
stay.
Whiting Turner will be looking at that stuff as add
The
alternates
flood
clearly,
mitigation
so.
part, really. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, next.
The next project is the traffic signal rehabilitation project. This is a multi-year project that it was initiated by doing a citywide assessment of all the city-owned traffic signals. The results of that assessment was that Church Circle was the highest priority. It recently came before council last month. It's a well-funded CIP, but again, as we're seeing, many of the costs have gone up. We recently requested supplemental appropriation for that, which was approved. So we're currently, once we receive that appropriation, we're in the process of executing the contract with the low bidder, Scott Duncan, and we're hiring the additional services, looking into archaeological monitoring and inspection services. We'll expect to, we've given a partial notice to proceed to order long lead materials, and we expect construction early next year.
That was in the newspaper, so that I did get some questions from residents, just wanting to make sure that we're coordinating it with the DLS construction and, any kind of, the last
Yes.
thing they want to hear is more construction, detours, et cetera, so.
Absolutely. The city has on the city's webpage a whole, all of the projects. It's one story map. It shows all the projects and the timeframes for them. And we have quarterly meetings with the Department of General Services and their work that's being done on College and Bladen, as well as the Maryland Stadium Authority, which is overseeing the Department of Legislative Services project. So we are very closely coordinating with that.
Yeah, it shows, and it's been a great relationship on my desk. Okay.
Melvin Avenue traffic calming. This is not in the CIP book, I don't believe, but this is a pilot project, and we've set up temporary traffic calming along Melvin Avenue. We've had two community outreach meetings to hear concerns and address questions. We've modified the design of the traffic calming as well as some of the locations, and we most recently had a community meeting on the 29th of November. Following that, we're allowing a 30-day period of comment, and then we anticipate moving forward. At this point, we've gotten a lot of positive support for it, so we're anticipating that this project will move forward next year.
And it is in the CIP.
It is in the
Yeah.
CIP.
Oh,
Yeah, it's on page
apologize.
36. So all the funding's in FY23, so we hope
apologize.
to do it all.
I did not realize that.
So the timeline for that at the end of the 30 days should be early 2023, if all goes well?
Yeah. Yes. We'll start. I'm not sure how much design, these types of projects, the traffic calming with chokers and medians, we've typically utilized our contractor in the paving program, but I'm not sure whether we'll have to spend a lot of money doing design, but we'll have to, I'm not sure if we're advertising this or were you anticipating?
We will just simply do this with our paving contractor, but one of the things I wanted to pick up on is construction during the winter is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And so as this goes forward, we probably would not start this construction until probably April. So we would be getting out of the bad weather and going into the good weather and the warm weather.
I do know it was noted at one of our meetings, a request was made to, if we could try to have it completed by the end of April for Earth Day, for the community to landscape it if they were interested in doing that, so.
Right, that was
keeping
kind of
that
where
in
my
mind.
questioning was going.
Yes.
And do you have an idea of how long it would take? Is this a 3-week project? Is it a 6-week project? Is it a?
I wouldn't normally be involved with that. Jen Fight, our engineer, our paving engineer, is out on maternity leave, and she'll be implementing the construction.
I would, and I say this because I used to run the paving program, that's probably a 4 to 5 week project. And again, we've got to get into good weather so we can do that work.
Thank you.
Ms. Greco, you indicated this was a pilot, and that's why it's in the CIP as a standalone item. Is that what I understood you to say?
I'll be honest, I wasn't aware that it was in the CIP because I wasn't involved with
The pilot
funding.
has been in place for I don't know, a year, maybe
Yes,
longer
yes,
than a
since
year. The
the-
pilot's been in place and it was successful, so we put it in the CIP so we could put the permanent traffic calming in.
So if another community would like a street calming, would it have to go through the same CIP process? Or because we've already studied the impact of this, it could simply be approved through another process?
So first, we have to do a traffic study to determine that there is actually a speeding issue that requires traffic calming. So that would be the process. And that's not a CIP. That would just is what I would normally do when the community association or individual residents come and ask concerns about speeding. We conduct a study, and when we have thresholds and criteria for determining whether it's a speeding problem that requires traffic would be helped by traffic calming. And then we work with the community to assess what type of traffic calming if it's needed.
Okay, so it wouldn't have to go through the same CIP process, though?
Well, if it was determined, not necessarily, but if it was determined that traffic calming was required and it was as extensive as we're showing on Melvin Avenue, then funding would be needed and it could be elevated to a CIP. We could request funding through the CIP process.
Okay.
Budget
So
process.
at some point, will we have an item in the CIP, a standing item for street calming without the specific delineation as to where? And that's a future
Yeah,
question.
I get-
We could do that. And we haven't done that in the past because it's been more site by site, but we could do that.
Over the years, I've called on Ms. Greco to come out to do these studies for me, so I'm a little bit familiar. But anyway, just frame of reference. Thank you.
This is the first pilot study that I've been involved with where traffic calming, I know there are other locations within the city where there was traffic calming existing, but that was before I started with the city and dealing with the traffic. So this is the first pilot project that I've done, and that's going to construction now.
Okay, thank you.
The bump outs the bump outs, for lack of a better word, that are in Eastport, you know, what, those, you know, in front of Blackwall Hitch?
Yes.
Right.
So the one on 6th Street at Bay Ridge was an existing crosswalk that got relocated to the other side of Bay Ridge Avenue, and we constructed bump outs to provide as a pedestrian safety measure. And so that didn't require, that was handled in-house. Our in-house masonry crew constructed that.
Cool, okay.
So the magic number is 50,000. If the cost is over 50,000, it becomes a CIP project. If it's below, then we can do it with our
Okay.
operating
This
money.
one is just over 58.5 or something. Okay. Next, Tucker Street.
And then the last is the Tucker Street boat ramp. This project is to demolish the existing boat ramp, which is beyond its useful life, and then to construct a new boat ramp, a pier, a fixed pier, as well as a kayak launch. So the design and construction are both funded in FY24. We have $318,000 for this project. This was prior, we had a grant funding, because I had worked on it in the past, but the grant funding was pulled, I believe, and so it became a CIP. It's all city funded. And we're just, at the point, we're just putting together a request for proposals for a design build of this project.
Questions?
Yes, so again, timeline on this, there's a request for proposal right now for design.
It's for design and build. We're looking for one entity to come in and do both the design and construction of it.
All right.
And typically, we would put it out, advertise something like that, for maybe 30 days. I would think we could identify a contractor within 3 months. And then, again, construction, we'd have to they'd have to design it and then put it out. I think construction realistically would be next summer sometime.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Greco.
Oh, I have one more question. because it's a boat ramp, would we really wait until summer, or would we do a spring or fall?
I guess it would depend on the design and the cost and whether we have adequate funding. Hopefully, we would have the design, we would have the contract, the design build awarded, and if the estimate came in that the construction was more than the funding available, then we would need additional funding in next year's capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Tora Burkhart, one of the engineers in Public Works. Yes, it's afternoon. So I'm going to cover the water distribution projects. I just wanted to mention, Director Gerald mentioned the water treatment plant. Donovan Facilities is going to handle that, so I'm not going to speak to that. The water distribution CIP includes several, what I might call sub-projects, so several projects that are under that one CIP. The one that is ongoing right now is the Eastport water distribution replacement. That is at 60% design. We just received that 60% design, and that is under review. The Eastport project is a project that's involving multiple utilities and followed by paving. So this is kind of the pattern that we've been trying to follow, is coordinate closely with other projects. You're going to hear later, I'm going to talk about a project I'm coordinating with Lisa with flood mitigation. And then Church Circle was a BGE project first. Now we're coordinating with legislative services in terms of work in the College Ave area and so on. So Eastport, BGE is working through their segmentation, which there's 4 segments that they have identified. They first do the mains, then they follow with a service crew, and then they're moving to the next segment with their mains. So they are almost done, probably end of December, beginning of January, with segment 1, which is the southeast quadrant of the Eastport Peninsula. The water project is, like I said, at 60% design. I'm anticipating that we will be starting the water work construction-wise by the end of the first quarter of 2023. That project, by the way, is about $4.5 million when I include the owner's rep that's assisting with this project. So you talked earlier about the $5.7 million fiscal year 23 budget, and this is some prior year funds and some funds for fiscal year 23. So that's the biggest by far. Church Circle is just kind of wrapping up now. It grew to include College Avenue between where we ended off originally, which was right at Bladen Street. We went to North Street, and the purpose of that was to be sure that our old water lines that are in College Avenue, that are underneath the crane for the Legislative Services Building, we would have a new line in there. We were concerned about the condition of our line. So that project grew. We just completed the final connection at the intersection of North Street, St. John Street, and College Avenue. We do have some additional work that may be coming soon to extend the newly constructed North Street water line that was constructed by under the Legislative Services Building, may be extending to State Circle to loop the water line there. So that might be another thing that's coming up in the next several months. Let's see. Compromise. So Compromise is, like I mentioned before, in conjunction with the work that Lisa's doing on flood mitigation. So I don't know if you've seen this, but she has three very large force mains that discharge from the pump station and go across Compromise to the end of Newman as part of her project. Before those those mains go in, there are a bunch of utilities in that intersection that need to be relocated. So Compromise, I'm treating as a Phase 1 and Phase 2 project. Phase 1 must be completed before Lisa starts with her project. So we're going to be doing water main relocation at that intersection of Newman and Compromise and extending it down to St. Mary's to loop it in with a line that runs up St. Mary's Street. So that's the first phase. The second phase will bring it from the other side of those force mains that Lisa's working on to the end of the Main Street water main project that I think you worked on, right, Sam? That is about at Green Street. So we'll be bringing the water main up to that point and connecting in where they left off. And then just wanted to mention that there's probably an Eastport Phase 3 project that will follow the BGE gas main work again, that's going to be done above the peninsula in the Chesapeake Ave and Bay Ridge Ave areas. So, but that's a little bit further ahead. Any questions?
Since there's only one category for this called water distribution rehabilitation, how do you prioritize, the vulnerability of some of these pipes? As you know,
Yes.
what was that? Within the last 6 months, we've had, some bursts
Yep.
due to pressure, I'm sure. So how do you incorporate those, urgencies?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I was going to mention that anyways. So we had a comprehensive analysis plan, you might call it an asset management plan, done for the water sewer utilities a few years back. And we are using that plan. That plan incorporates typical asset management practices, which are looking at both the probability of failure and the consequence of failure. So we look at things like how many work orders have we had for water main breaks in this area. It also looks at the consequence of failure. It incorporates things like whether there's a medical facility that's on this line, whether there's schools, critical buildings. Is it too close to a building? So there's many consequences that get incorporated into that. And then you basically take the numbers that come out of that probability of failure times the numbers that come out of the consequence of failure, multiply them, and you get a number that gives you a BRE, which is a business risk exposure. So we use those numbers in conjunction with the coordination with other projects to get ahead of the paving. So if, for instance, there's scheduled paving, we may bump up a project that already has a pretty high BRE. We may bump that up to go a little bit faster so that we keep ahead of but it's challenging to keep ahead of all these projects. There's only so much you can do, and you could see how what the impact was in Church Circle and the coordination that was required for that. So there was a capital project timeline written several years ago by our former bureau chief, Joe Baker. And it's interesting because it really gets to the point of how capital projects are typically multi-year. You can't look at a project as being just one fiscal year. It's a multi-year project in most cases.
Thank you. It's similar to like a medical analysis. I do want to take this time real quickly to say the coordination on College State Circle with DLS is just been amazing, and I just know the notification to the neighbors, all that. So thank you so much, and I know it will continue.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's really appreciated. I think if we're done with Thora for housekeeping, we're about halfway done. Because you have staff here, Director Jarrell, I will ask you if you can continue. We can always add this to our next meeting, the 21st, or we can maybe take a 5-minute break and continue, plow ahead.
Well, we're prepared to continue.
To plow
I think
ahead,
some of these next projects probably will go
Okay.
a little bit faster than the first group did.
Okay.
So Diane?
Good afternoon. I'm Diane Doyen, and I'm a project manager for the sewer projects. Similar to the water distribution CIP, the sewer rehab CIP has multiple sub-projects beneath it. The first project I'm working on is the rebuild of the Witten Court sewage pump station. Alderwoman Finlayson, I've been in touch with you recently about that. Thank you. It's located at the end of the cul-de-sac on Witten Court, which is off of Bywater Road. The current pump station is about 50 years old and has reached the end of its useful life. We just held a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, who's going to be Schumer Incorporated. And depending on the lead times of the major components, such as the generator, pumps, and controls, we're anticipating construction to start in late winter or early spring. Because we just had the pre-construction meeting, we should be getting a schedule from them next week, and then and once they start reaching out to their suppliers, we'll have a better feel for what the lead times currently are for those items. Another project that is continuing is sewer pipe relining using a cured-in-place pipeliner. We've been working in various areas of the city. Amliner is the contractor that we're currently working with, and they'll be remobilizing again in January to do some CCTV inspections of pipes prior to coming back in to install liners. As Tora mentioned on Compromise Street, ahead of the stormwater pump station project, in addition to her installing or relocating water mains, I am looking to relocate about 60 feet of sewer mains in order to get out of the way of the proposed stormwater force mains that will be crossing Compromise Street. And that work is anticipated to happen in late winter, and it'll most likely be done at the same time as the water main work. I'm working on some force main replacements, the sewage force mains from the Smith Avenue pump station and the Hanover Street force main as well. The Smith Avenue force main is over 5,000 feet long, and it crosses through the Truxton Heights community as well as Truxton Park and discharges over on Primrose Lane. The Hanover Street force main, actually, it's named Hanover Street because the pump station is the Hanover Street pump station, but it runs along Wagner Street and then turns on to King George Street and discharges at the intersection of King George and College Avenue. For that project, we'll have to work with the Historic Preservation Society, and we're also trying to coordinate with BG&E, see if they're going to be doing any gas main work in that area.
Does that discharge at the academy? You said it discharges.
Into the sewer main that's located in the intersection of, there's a manhole at the intersection of King George Street and College Avenue.
Okay. Oh, thank you, that part.
It comes up the hill and turn, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So while Jen fights out a maternity leave, I've just been kind of, holding on a little bit to her roads and sidewalk projects. The 2022 paving is just about finished, but we're supposed to be, the reliable contracting's coming in this week to finish paving on Hoover Street. And then there are 2 contractors currently on board for the 2023 sidewalk work. And the upcoming work for the sidewalks so far will be on Merriman Lane, Hawkins Lane, and Shipwright Street.
And again, there's a priority assessment done for the public that are listening. I know everybody
We do
wants their...
condition assessments every 3 or 4 years, I guess, for both the streets and the sidewalks to be able to prioritize. And then we try to group them together as much as we can in the same geographical area.
Any questions?
No, thank you for the coordination. I just, for my own knowledge, when does sewer, storm, and water and paving, do you have like weekly meetings, or are you just always looking over each other's shoulders?
I think we're all just in constant communication and working together. It's a good team.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
May I just want to say thank you for your work on Witten Court. I mean, keeping the community informed about what's going to happen there. So I appreciate it, and I know they do also.
Yeah, sure. And if you hear from any of the residents, please feel free to get in touch with me right away, and I'll
haven't
discuss
heard
with them.
a peep so far, so that's good.
Good. We'll try to keep it that way.
Yeah, good news is always good news. All right. Oh, this one is exciting for you guys.
It's near and dear to our hearts.
Bet you can't wait.
Donovan?
Don't feel pressured on finishing
no,
it in
not at
time.
Good afternoon. My name is Donovan Harold. I'm a project engineer in Public Works. I work on the capital projects for the city-owned facilities. As Tora mentioned earlier, one of the projects that I'm working on is at the water treatment plant is the well houses. The well houses and wells at the water treatment plant, that's where the groundwater is drawn from. And there are 8 wells, and these wells average in age from the 1940s to 2001, to the 2000s. And I am putting together a design for additional enhancements and to improve these water wells.
Where is that in the capital budget, or is it described at all? Or
It should be under the water distribution fund.
oh, it's part of that.
Yes, it's part of that.
Okay. Yep.
May I ask, did we not enhance, I guess that's not the right word, these wells when we were building the water treatment plant?
No, we didn't, but they were identified while the construction was going on at the water treatment plant.
Okay, so we missed that. We should have probably done that at the same time, maybe? Okay.
Well, that's
Well,
debatable, I guess. So they're
don't know.
completely separate from the water treatment plant. They're wells that are scattered around the area out there, standalone pump stations, basically drawing the water out of the ground. So they're not really part of the water treatment plant proper. So they're just getting to the end of or they need work. They're not at the end of their useful service life, but they need to be rehabbed.
okay, so they're out there on that property, but they're not connected to the water
They're not
treatment plant
connected
in
at
any
all.
way?
And not all of them are located out there.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Not all water wells are located out at the water treatment. They're in
Okay.
3 different geographical locations.
Okay, so just in general. All right. I'm not confused. I understand now, but I think others might be confused when you talk about both of them on the same property or something, but never mind. I understand. Thank you.
Okay. The first project I want to talk about is the Public Works Maintenance Facility. The Public Works Maintenance Facility is a facility that is a replacement for the facility that we had on Spa Road. Right now, we have the services and fleet maintenance working out on Spa Road out of the garage, and some trailers that we installed on Spa Road, as well as it'll also house the utilities department. that is working out of a lease space in Chinkapin Round Road. Currently, the maintenance facility, both facilities are under roof. The work is under both roofs right now. The salt barn is completed. Basically, all the work that is being taken place right now is some rough ends for electrical and mechanical. All the overhead doors are installed. Sprinkler branches are also being installed as we speak. Right now, the only outstanding thing, we're 80% complete, basically. Scheduled for move-in and to be wrapped up in the spring of 2023. But the outstanding issues right now that we have are elevator hasn't arrived yet for the building, and our switch for our generator has not come in. And right now, the site lighting is going to be installed this December. So those are the 3 items. Once those items are completed, we should be well on our way to having that building wrapped up in spring in 2023. You have any questions for me? I know it's a favorite project of yours.
Alderman Finlayson?
Well, we're excited, needless to say. I'm looking at the diagram that's in the CIP. How many buildings? This looks like there are several buildings.
There's only 2 buildings. One building to house the storage for the vehicles, a building where we're going to do the maintenance on the vehicles and the offices, and a salt barn in the rear of the property.
You said the
Salt barn, where
Barn.
the salt is being stored for the winter months.
That's different from the salt dome?
It's the same thing.
Okay. I think we should have a tour. We, being the council, at some point. We saw it before the construction began, and I think this is, kind of exciting that it's this far, which seems pretty quickly, but maybe not. But anyway, just put that in your...
Yeah, I'll put that down. I know it's a lot of activity going on right now.
Yeah,
There's a
we
lot
don't
of
wanna be in
contractors out
danger.
there, so we'll try to get that scheduled for you.
Yeah, we don't want to be in danger, but I think everyone would appreciate a closer look at what we're doing. I don't remember seeing this picture like this, and maybe it was in the diagram.
Right, yeah.
Yours is different. Is that the...
No, this is the landfill
Okay.
gas mitigation. What page is that?
Anyway, this is page 34.
Oh, okay, cool, thanks.
Um,
Congratulations
Okay.
on the progress. That sounds like it's going well, other than elevator delivery.
Yeah, it's just those 2.
so,
The picture you're looking at is looking at some other facilities out there in that location.
Oh, so that's not all us?
No, we just have 2 buildings and 1 salt dome.
Okay.
Yeah, the one that's on the left, the far left, is an existing facility. So that's the one on the left, the far left in the photograph, is not ours. That's an
Okay.
existing building. So it's really the 2 that are sort of centered on the photograph.
So where's the dome in? Is that in the back of the second building?
Yes.
Okay. Or the barn, as you call it now, right? Okay.
If you
You guys cannot change the pictures without telling us.
expand
I'm
it,
just
then you
saying.
can actually see the
Yeah.
Because have you guys,
What's that?
I said they can't change the pictures without telling us.
Right, exactly.
So we do
Yeah.
like to keep up.
It's kind of cool. If you blow it up, then you can see what's exactly
Yeah, that's
new.
what I did.
Blurry stuff is in, whoa, it's
Yeah.
blurry there.
Well, that's pretty clever. They blurred everything that's not part
Right.
of the, okay.
So the elevator is on some tanker out in the Mediterranean or something.
It's another supply chain issue that we're dealing with right now.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Next project is the Maynard Burgess House. The Maynard Burgess House, which is across the street from City Hall. It's a project that I've been working on in various phases since I've come to the city in 2012. When I first got here, we took off of the siding and tried to weatherize the house because it's been vacant for so many years. And we took the siding off, tried to keep what pieces that would survive and put those back on. The pieces that didn't survive, we made duplicates or copies and tried to best maintain the historic fabric on the house as possible. Right now, we're renovating a house. All the utilities have been installed. Because of ADA compliance, we had to install a bathroom on the back of the house, on the rear of the house. The bathroom has been framed. It's been connected to the city's sanitary system. And right now we have carpenters inside the building working on the first floor framing, and electricians and plumbers also working on their rough ends. We're scheduled to be complete this project hopefully by the spring of '23 as well.
So as there's no money appropriated for fiscal year '23, you're
The money that we have, we won't need any additional funds to complete this phase of the project.
great.
We don't hear that often.
I know. We heard that now. Wow, that's great. Okay.
And because I don't know, what will this building be used for?
Right now, it's been designed for meeting spaces. I don't know what the intended uses will be. Even though it's designed for meeting spaces, you would be able to outfit it for, I guess, individual desks or office spaces. Not walls, but basically you would have to have open space with desks inside so people can have spaces to work from.
Cubicle.
Cubicles, yes.
Thank you.
May I ask one more question?
Of course.
So, but we've maintained the historical integrity of this building?
Yes,
throughout.
ma'am.
Okay, that's the important
Yes.
thing for
Yeah.
us, the value.
And that's really great for the city to do that. I mean, I know Historic Annapolis is doing the Bryce House, and it's sort of the same thing. Although this isn't like a true restoration where you have to replace in kind, it's almost, what
Well,
is it sort of kinda?
it's on their easement from MHT, and
Oh.
we had to get their approval with our design.
Yeah.
And basically, we tried to make sure that as much original historic fabric is there, we had to try to maintain it and keep it there.
Yeah, that's really great work. I'm sure you're looking forward to others. That's really tedious, and thank you for that.
What's the next one?
Next one.
Burtis House. This is a project right now that is currently under design. It's being managed by Preservation Maryland. The first phase of the project is basically just to stabilize the house, lift it up, and mothball it until the second phase, which would be done as part of the City Doc project. We just had a meeting on Friday to talk about the permitting requirements, and basically we decided that both phases will require a grading permit. And right now, the architects and the engineers for the civil engineers are working on their designs for the grading permit.
Again, a lot of moving parts on this project. Donovan, who is determining the programmatic use of this house? So
we're doing that as part of the City Dec project, and there's a lot of interested parties, including the National Park Service, that would like to move in there. We need to have a home for the harbor master because their building is coming down. There's going to be a building just adjacent to the Burtis House that's going to house a lot of the the restrooms and the showers and boater facilities that are in the current building are going to move out there. But there definitely is a lot of discussion going on about who's going to be and what's going to be in Burtis House itself.
So as of this date, is the harbor master program, is that space assumed to be in the Burtis House, or is that based on what it's going to
If I were
cost?
betting man, I would bet that they're going to end up in the building just adjacent to the Burtis House, the new
Yeah,
building that's
they'll-
going to be constructed. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the second floor of that building.
Right, the Burtis House, is really limited
It-
on.
It's very limited.
Right.
Yeah. And initially, we were going to try to just add on to the Burris House, but makes more sense to leave it intact, to take off some of the new additions that were put on, but then have an adjacent building.
And that is clearly going to be an ad. I mean, that if you're talking a standalone building for the harbor master.
And the architecture will be much different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, to be continued. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You mentioned, Mr. Harold, mothballs. We're putting it in, where and how? Are we leaving it in the location and simply protecting it?
Correct.
From all the construction that's going to go around it? Or what does that mean? You're putting it in mothballs?
Just sealing it up and making sure that it doesn't suffer the same deterioration that it suffered while it was vacant. Sealing it up, making sure that it's nothing can get inside it, and it's in condition to be worked on once the phase 2 gets approved.
So it won't be usable
No.
until the whole project is completed? I
Correct.
think that's my question. Okay.
I have to ask this.
Thank you.
What flood elevation datum are we using for that building? Because I know the Navy is on one side and City Dock is on the other, and
Yeah, so we're going to build our building adjacent to it at 7 feet, which is what the code requires and what we think is reasonable. The initial design for Burris was to raise it to 9 feet. So our architect, Bryce Turner, is working with the Preservation Maryland architect to figure out how the two are going to coincide with, live together next door to each other at comparable elevations. I think they're probably going to come down somewhat from 9 feet, but they'll probably be above the 7 feet that the other building's going to be at.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad they're meeting. All right, Stanton Center.
Yes, Stanton Center. We did a facility condition assessment in 21. And it was determined that we had some improvements that was needed on the Stanton Center. And we also received a fiscal year 21 state grant for $600,000 and a fiscal year 23 grant for $600,000. So we have basically $1.2 million to do the improvements on the Stanton Center, which is currently being designed. The design is going to be HVAC, mechanical, floors and ceiling, electrical, corridors. We're also going to replace the gym floor and also install lockers for the homeless for the winter months. And in addition, we're also going to do exterior improvements as well, replace the roof and work on the brick facade, the brick exterior as well.
I heard that part of the plan was to build a green roof or living roof or opportunity to do gardening on the roof. Is that still
On Stanton Center? I did not hear that. That is not something that we asked the design team to take a look at as well. It's a historic building. I think I would have to go to MHT as well as HPC to have something like that put on that facility anyway.
So a vicious rumor.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just learned we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock for swearing in. We'll just keep going. We'll try to limit our questions. I don't know if we'll get done or not.
Madam Chair, would this be an appropriate place to stop, Mr. Gerald? Do you think we could get through 3 more? We have 8 more to go.
Yeah,
We have 8 more to go.
I think we can get Mike Rosberg's done at least. Yeah.
So you think
in
we
20
can,
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, the next three and then,
I think we need to stop before 1 o'clock though, because
Right.
1 o'clock is when they're due to have their
Okay.
swearing
Yeah,
in,
so-
in here.
All right.
David thinks we
So
can
Mike?
do Mike Rosberg.
Okay,
That's three.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because these street end parks are usually,
Oh, try to be quick. Mike Rosberg, I'm a stormwater engineer in Public Works. Now that Betsy McKeown is the stormwater program manager, I work under her, but I'm still underneath Sam Bryce in the engineering division. The first project I'll talk about is the Hawkins Cove Restoration Project. This project is located in Ward 7. If you're looking at the Truxton boat ramp, it's off to the left, down in the cove, and off land, it's off of, you kind of have to turn off Madison Street to get there. This project has many features. It includes shoreline restoration, bulkhead repair, dock repair, dredging, and upland improvements. And back in 2021, we received a $65,000 grant from the CB Trust for the living shoreline design and implementation. And since then, we, through the trust, also received a private donation of an additional $65,000, so a total of $130,000 through the trust for the living shoreline. And this past summer, we also applied and was awarded a $500,000 grant through NIFWIF, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. This can be used for implementation and design of all features associated with the cove. This now allows us to improve the scope to include living shoreline aspects as well as upland work associated with the cove, such as trails, improvements, and other things related to that. The dredging that was planned, we applied for a DNR grant for the dredging aspect of Hawkins Cove. And since then, we've learned through with meetings with DNR that this project will likely need to find other sources of funding for dredging due to the lots of restrictions with dredging, especially for new dredging of Hawkins Cove like this. So it's still a part of the scope of this project. We're just going to have to search and find different areas to include to make sure that dredging can be done. So currently a draft RFP for design services has been prepared. Planning and zoning has also reviewed it and incorporated lots of scope items as far as the upland work, along with the living shoreline and other improvements to the shoreline. So that will hopefully be going out to bid shortly. Any questions on Hawkins Cove?
no, I didn't know it was so extensive. Wow. Any questions?
Well, I guess I do have one question. You mentioned that you're going to be seeking funding. Do you have any prospects, or which part of it are you specifically going to have to seek funding for?
So currently we have enough funding to get an engineering team on board to provide design services and a design to design and survey and get all the information we need for the cove. At which point they'll also give us a plan as far as to phase implementation and phase construction. And that way we'll better strategize what we want to implement and when. The dredging aspect of it is going to be interesting because there are lots of, speaking with DNR, new dredging is very restrictive as far as what material you can use, where you can put it, and so forth. So that will be, again, we'll use, once we get an engineering team on board, we'll be able to determine, they'll also be able to help us with funding sources, whether it's through FEMA, DNR, other agencies to help us find the best path moving forward as far as implementing the dredging aspect of it.
I would appreciate if you would send me what you have on your NIFWIF grant. I serve on LGAC, and we're always looking for projects to refer to NIFWIF. So, share with me the funding that you did get and what you'd like to get, and maybe we can put that in front of NIFWIF. Because just last week I was at a meeting and they were asking for projects, so I'd like to give them projects.
That's great.
What is that? What does that stand for?
God, I knew you would ask.
No,
National Fish
It's
and
the National
Oh,
Field and
Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, Fish and Wildlife,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
That's good enough, okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. Trucks and Heights storm drain improvements. This is a project, the first phase of the storm drain study was completed earlier last year. We, since then, have revised our award agreement with our engineering firm, AMT, Ate Thomas, to continue the design and permitting phase of the project. We recently had our kickoff meeting and are planning to mobilize survey crews this month to begin survey and property delineation to determine, to enhance the design and also determine what easements we may need to acquire to install and maintain these storm drains. And currently the construction funding of roughly $2.8 million is planned for fiscal year 24, which we are still currently on track to, which is currently on track.
Yeah, and I think we may have a meeting early next year to update the residents who have been, you know.
Yeah. Both on this project and on the Trexton Park Trail project.
Yeah, I mean, what we failed to mention and understood is that the whole effect of the pandemic, I mean, it just has delayed, you know what I mean? Like sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least.
Yep, and the stormwater management retrofit project, this last item, this is a project that's being funded through the Watershed Restoration Fund. And we currently, our first, I guess, phase of this project, through our owner's rep contract, this past year, we have several firms on board to help us with project-related items such as doing storm drain studies and outfall risk assessments. So we are planning to draft a proposal and award Balin Consultants work on our outfall risk assessment program, which will consist of evaluating all outfalls, storm drain outfalls within the city, and performing a risk assessment, determining which projects we feel are critical and which other projects we can possibly lump together in a separate contract to repair and maintain. So that project scope is currently under development. And again, once that is complete, we will have a better understanding of what other stormwater projects we can fund using the Stormwater Management Retrofit Project Fund.
Do you want to squeeze in Jasmine at the end, the last one?
Madam Chair, I would prefer that we not try to. We've got people standing outside. I think it's.
Okay, I was looking at the 10 minutes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Walding and Mr. Vogel. I'm sorry. I think
I tried.
All right. If we could ask them to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to,
oh my gosh,
to discuss all the projects.
And thank you to everyone for sharing and giving us an opportunity to better understand what you're doing. And as usual, a mountain of projects that you guys are undertaking. So
Yeah.
I say thank you very much.
And we will encourage our colleagues to watch this as well as the public so that they know what you all do. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated.
Mr. Gerald, I think in the past you provided a list, and I think we even published it in the paper, did we not? Of all
Well, what we plan to do is we have a status report that in fact, our status meeting is right after this. It's once a month, and we go through all the meetings. So we're going to clean that up a bit, and we'll provide that as well.
Yeah.
That has more of the dates and the dollar amounts and all those types of things for each of the projects. So, and if you have any questions after you see that, we're happy to address those.
Okay, well, we appreciate it, and I think the public appreciates it also. So, thank you much.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, sorry to
No,
interrupt, but I
just noticed there.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.